There we go.
Great. So welcome everybody to the second session of the Zodiac and DAOs Kernel Fellowship Round 4 session. And y'all can see my screen, right, with the Zodiac slide.
We can, yep.
Great. So basically in this session, it will be composed of a shorter presentation than last time, and then diving into a quick tutorial about how to set up the Zodiac exit module, which we'll go into a little bit more detail at the end. But the presentation initially will basically just give us a taste of how Zodiac approaches DAO tooling. And one thing you'll notice is that Zodiac, unlike most DAO platforms or DAO tooling today, is relatively framework agnostic, meaning rather than creating one all-encompassing platform, Zodiac consists of many tools to connect to many existing DAO platforms. So this includes things like the DAO House platform that we set up in the last session. And basically what it does is allows organizations to evolve. And diving in. And so a little context first is that basically 2 years ago, the DAO ecosystem looked very different than it did today. We had kind of legends like DAOstack's Genesis DAO. We had Maker just beginning its transition to DAOifying truly. Hundreds of Aragon DAOs, as well as the beginning of Moloch DAO, which some might say changed DAOs forever. And the DAO landscape today looks very different than that only 2 years later. Not only do we have protocol DAOs, we also have investments and grants DAOs, plus things like social DAOs, media DAOs, and collector DAOs, bringing the idea of DAOs to the cultural sector and really expanding on it. And so from this, we know that the DAO ecosystem is evolving, but are its tools. And they've definitely grown in number. I would say the ecosystem really is flourishing, combining these platforms, protocols, frameworks. However, threads connecting this plug and play approach have lacked an open standard. Until now. So composable design philosophy for DAOs. Zodiac is a collection of tools built according to an open standard, because DAOs are not monoliths, they're constellations, our little line. And Zodiac launched with 4 tools by our team, Gnosis Guild, Exit, Delay, Reality, formerly SafeSnap, and Bridge, which join Reality in the collection of tools. And they are all, those 4 are all available through the Gnosis Safe, where you can use the Zodiac app to equip and stack different Zodiac mods like we'll be doing today. However, more than a collection of tools, Zodiac is an open standard on which anyone can build to ensure DAO interoperability. Each tool in the collection adheres to the Zodiac open standard, consisting of avatars, modules, modifiers, and guards. And the current Zodiac compliant collection of tools, soon to all be available through the app, additionally encompass, of course, the Gnosis Safe, which we embrace as a powerful, extensible, and programmable account standard. However, all Zodiac tools are framework agnostic, and they can be plugged into any programmable account that implements the iAvatars interface or iAvatar solidity file. These include modules built by other teams, such as Safe Minion, which was developed by DAO House, and we can set up our own DAO WoW, which allows Moloch DAOs to manage a Gnosis Safe's digital assets based on the outcome of proposals. There's also Sila, developed by Token Walk, and built by Nathan, who's also a member of the Gnosis Guild team, which allows avatars or accounts to operate with trustless, tokenized, decentralized governance, similar to Compound or Gitcoin, with a time box proposal core. Since launch, several changes and further abstractions have been made to this module, and we'll be publishing a blog post on it soon. Additionally, Zodiac has things like guards. One of these is scope, which allows an account or module to limit the scope of functions that can interact. This enables a DAO to define granular permissions for different control mechanisms. In this sense, it allows for better security practices around which functions a decentralized safe treasury can call. So that was a pretty quick run through of some existing tools, but I think one way to make them less abstract is to walk through an example of how they can be used in practice and why this is fundamentally a new paradigm for how DAOs can kind of plug and play software tooling. So for one example, you could say that a DAO begins as a squad with an idea, a small team with a mission, and they deploy a Gnosis safe multi-signature account as their avatar to manage shared resources. And this Gnosis safe has 4 out of 6 signatures required to execute a transaction. So while informal proposals through a group chat suffice initially, eventually their decisions as a squad become more substantial. They decide to launch a token to expand their project. And in order to keep a formal record of their decisions, they create a snapshot space for token voting. And their first vote includes who should be elected as signers on their Gnosis safe. And after this, using a Zodiac app, they decide to equip Exit so that anyone who holds their token can leave their organization with their proportional share of digital assets. And available through the Zodiac app on Gnosis Safe, the Exit module prompts you to enter a token contract address. And the address refers to the ERC20 token participants can redeem for a proportional share of this account's compatible ERC20 digital assets, meaning in the more kind of traditional sense that it's a share that is exchangeable for assets which represent it. And that's the mod we'll be setting up later today in the tutorial. So after equipping Exit, the DAO progresses to the next phase of decentralization. However, as time goes on, their community grows rapidly, developing many centers of activity through their token-enabled Discord, and one central team managing their Gnosis safe becomes less than ideal. In this light, they decide to use Reality, which was formerly called SafeSnap and exists as SafeSnap on the snapshot interface. But in essence, Reality allows both off-chain snapshot proposals and things like Discord polls to create on-chain Gnosis safe transactions that anyone in the community can execute. Through the Zodiac app on Gnosis Safe, the Reality module guides you through creating a DAO question template, cooldown period, and minimum bond for the escalation game-based oracle, reality.e. So what it's essentially doing behind the hood is using an oracle to prove that an off-chain decision is verifiable on-chain and then can be executed. Next, if you're using Snapshot, and in the case of this DAO, they are, this imaginary DAO, you can add the SafeSnap plugin to your snapshot space directly from the snapshot interface pictured here, which will connect to the Reality module you've enabled on your Gnosis safe by simply copy pasting the contract address of the Reality module you set up. And once configured, both on your Gnosis safe and on Snapshot, you can now add Gnosis safe transactions pre-prepared to a snapshot proposal, such as I want to transfer funds to this wallet address, which represents our grant proposal's wallet address. And these transactions can then be executed by anyone after it's been verified that it is successful. And so going back to the interface of a successful proposal, you can see now a button that says execute transaction, allowing for decentralized execution of off-chain votes on-chain. So now that's a massive leap forward towards decentralization for the DAO. However, Gnosis safe signers still have veto power. So the 4 out of 6 signers that were originally elected. Before totally removing the Gnosis safe signers, to add extra security to the new practice Reality supports, which is taking off-chain votes on-chain so that anyone in the community can execute them, the DAO enables scope, which restricts addresses their Gnosis safe can call. And after acclimating to using Snapshot and Gnosis Safe with the Zodiac mods, Reality and Scope, kind of a mouthful, they choose to disable the Gnosis Safe signers, achieving full decentralization of the DAO's core technical system managing resources. And this is just one example of the ways in which Zodiac enables organic pathways for progressive decentralization. So rather than a one-size-fits-all model for DAOs or one platform fits all for DAOs, Zodiac enables you to collect, plug and play, and basically equip DAOs for whatever adventures they may face in the future. So you could continue this example with a future scenario and say, eventually this DAO community would like more refined governance processes and token voting. So they take an interest in conviction voting, which we can maybe talk about more in later sessions, in which members can continuously signal their voting preferences. And they decide to use an upcoming conviction voting app on the XDAI network to save gas fees, but implement this mechanism for the DAO. And operating as a multi-chain DAO, so deploying something like the conviction voting app on the XDAI network, does not sacrifice composability. because they also enable the Zodiac Bridge module, which shown here can connect the conviction voting app deployed on the XI network to the DAO's original Gnosis Safe treasury deployed on Ethereum mainnet. In this slide, DAOs are Zodiac mods are designed to take decision-making beyond token voting, looking to hybrid models using things like time delays and anti-collusion signaling methods. And ultimately, the open standard decouples avatars from decision-making, meaning that practices around governance, membership, and treasury management can be customized independently of the affordances of any of the tools a DAO uses. In short, Zodiac enables DAOs to be living, breathing, evolving organizations in a way that existing DAO platforms do not. And with a programmable account like the Gnosis Safe at their core, tools built on the Zodiac open standard support these organizations that evolve over time. So the rough thinking around 3 levels of DAOs as multi-organizational networks aligned by tokens, with teams assembled around production that might have different granular governance mechanisms based on how their team operates and feeds back to the overall DAO network, plus raids and sprints of different teams working together to achieve common missions, can be enabled by Zodiac by allowing kind of custom plug and play modding culture coming to how we actually organize governance. And so just a little bit more about us. So the team behind Zodiac, we consider ourselves a society for interdependent software with the values of conviviality, co-ownership, and experimentation. Our team is incubated by Gnosis, and we operate as a small team using the tools that we build. So from closely observing the rise of Gnosis Safe, our awareness that the DAO technology stack lacked composability ignited this initiative. And seeing just how many DAOs use it today, the Gnosis Safe, it's been really interesting to see how people are finding the Zodiac mods useful and how it allows different organizations to continue to evolve. So we're a core contributor to the Zodiac collection of tools and a keeper of the open standard as a team. But ultimately, anyone can contribute to the Zodiac compliant collection of tools by submitting a pull request on the repo at github.com/Zodiac/Gnosis/Zodiac. And we embrace practices that will over time meaningfully distribute contribution, governance, and ownership of the value that Zodiac may produce. And so this also includes the Zodiac design language, which was super fun to do and consists of glyphs that can be recombined to create Zodiac icons. Developed in collaboration with the design studio Prop Supply, the design language represents a collection of tools according to the qualities such as strength, magic, and dexterity that each tool affords an organization. And even more, DAOs can overlay these glyphs to represent the constitution of their organization as a badge. And while still evolving, the release of the first version of the design language will coincide with a Gnosis Guild NFT drop coming up soon for contributors. In summary, composable tools like Zodiac create space for organizations to evolve, embracing a plug and play culture of modding. Resembling the kind of unmediated access to tools one vision of 20th century technology promoted. And so I think a lot of you joined from the last session, but to reiterate and to get involved in shaping Web3's access to DAO tools, you can join the Gnosis Guild Discord, where we'll soon be dropping some of those NFTs, and also check us out on Twitter, our blog, everything from the last sessions. And yeah, that's in general the summary of the kind of Gnosis Zodiac approach. We'll be diving in the session basically with 3 objectives, or they've shifted slightly from this slide. But this session called Expanding Universe will basically walk through creating a Gnosis Safe on Rinkeby test network together, and also deploying a Zodiac exit module and looking at some of the features and specificities about how it works. And we will also, rather than point 3 here, it'll be updated in the later slides, but we can potentially walk through how to mint a token on the Rinkeby test network and then use the token that you've minted to actually do a kind of token gated Gnosis Safe using the exit mod, depending on interest and time. So I'll basically just pause here for any questions, and I'll I'll flip my screen sharing over to my desktop and run through the tutorial and also share it on Discord too.
Great. Thank you so much, Kia. I'll give you a second to start that switch over. We do have one question in the chat from Sidcode, if you want to ask.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Vivek and Kia. The question is that can organizations customize their own design and meaning for each of the traits that you shared, like strength, intelligence, dexterity?
Yeah, so our thinking is that for each mod, it will have a particular kind of affordance. And we loosely define them according to the DND kind of character alignment qualities, so strength, dexterity, etc. But with really kind of roughly loose definitions of what those could afford for a DAO. So you could think of dexterity as kind of the ability to move cross-chain. You could think of strength as security and the ability to set best practices for securities and DAOs. But we mean it in a very playful manner. So I think as the project kind of progressively decentralizes, there will be more of a scope for people to really just take the kind of Figma file and recombine logos if they want to submit to the Zodiac repo. And if anyone wants to do that today with anything they're building, that's totally welcome. I do think in the initial short term, like it's fun to chat with teams and guide them towards how they feel about like any of those qualities for the tools they're building or their organization. But we really do want it to be a kind of open, fun design language that people can feel real ownership of.
Amazing.
Thank you.
On that note, one question that comes up, and this perhaps ties in a thought from the prehistory of DAOs that I thought was really prescient personally, was this idea of financialization and bringing it to the right places. I'd be curious in this context, looking at the tools that naturally start with tools that are based around token issuance and then figuring out how to most appropriately move them around an ecosystem or a squad. How do you think about this particular idea? Maybe it could be answered with tools that are not as financially focused, or ways that these tools could, in interesting ways, be used for things beyond the financial.
Sure. So I think this is a really good point, and I think also to just slightly reiterate the question for those on Discord is the question might be summarized as how are these tools potentially helpful for creating groups and coordination that don't have a financial approach, let's say, at the center. And I would say it's a little bit kind of more in the future trajectory of Zodiac than the tools available today. But things like considering, like, as per Nathan Schneider's really good recent point, that maybe opening up a kind of DAO, let's say, and immediately seeing a list of transactions or a list of assets that are held is not the ideal form of a DAO, that we would really like to see something different than this. And I think those of us on the Nessus Guild team, and I think as well as the SAFE team, potentially see more social ways around which DAOs can be organized. Just recently at the ETH Lisbon hackathon, the Haifa DAO team won one of their prizes with their code to basically turn a Telegram group into a multi-sig. And for some time, we've been talking with different projects that maybe like one of the main interfaces to a Gnosis Safe is not a list of transactions, but actually a chat room. And being able to organize without seeing kind of the financial aspect at the core feels really important. And that's why we're also prioritizing forms of governance that aren't strictly kind of plutocratic token voting. So things like conviction voting, as well as a few of the other governance protocols for decision making that we want to prioritize in our roadmap that don't one-to-one resemble that token voting, kind of simple, direct token voting.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. All right, so now I will share my screen on Discord and on Zoom again. Okay. Screen should be there. And bringing up Zoom. Okay. So can everybody on Discord and on Zoom see my screen?
Yes, on Zoom.
All right, great. So first I'll kind of run through what the exit module is from Zodiac, and then I'll run through creating a safe and setting it up, and then we can all run through it together. I wanted to kind of design it with a little bit of level of redundancy so that those following on Zoom, and I know we're a larger number, can kind of keep step. So we'll deploy safe and we'll deploy an exit module. What is the exit module in more detail? So the exit module comes from a kind of idea that was inspired, or at least first in practice, from Moloch DAO. So I'm sure most of us are somewhat familiar with Moloch DAO by now, but it was a really big moment in 2019 when it first launched. And I really recommend everybody check out this white paper. I've shared the slides both in Discord and on Slack, so you can check out this link. Because it was kind of, a lot of DAO platforms have been in development since the original DAO hack 3 years prior. But there was also a perceived dissatisfaction with how funding was being allocated in the ecosystem. And Moloch DAO was an attempt to basically bring together major stakeholders of Ethereum to align and distribute funding with, let's say, with more transparency and with less overhead. It's a windy day here in Portugal. So yeah, basically one of the key features of the Moloch DAO platform was that it had a rage quit mechanism. And so basically what we set up last time with the DAO House platform was a DAO House, was a Moloch DAO under the hood. And basically the mechanism there is that when you join as a member, either in the initial creation of the DAO or when you propose yourself as a member, you are given you can request one share in the organization. And what that means is that you can also request more. You could request 2, 3, etc. But essentially they're shares of an organization that allow a certain percentage that you as a member control of the assets, but also the voting rights. So if you're a team of 10 and each person has 1 share, each person has 10% voting rights and also 10% access to the assets. Moloch DAO also introduced loot, which is access to assets without governance points. We don't necessarily need to go fully into that now, but to say there is some distinction in terms of shares and loot and governance rights and voting and access to assets. But basically what the rage quit mechanism then allowed was that within 7 days of a proposal being passed, you had the opportunity to rage quit. This basically meant exchanging your shares for your representative proportion of the DAO's given assets. So if you, in this example of a team of 10, each of you have 1 share, you could rage quit and essentially redeem your 1 share for 10% of the assets that the DAO held in the main treasury contract. So if it held 10 ETH, then you could exchange your 10% of the shares for 1 ETH, or that would be 10% of the treasury, the main one. And this became really nice, I think, as well, because prior to this, not many people had thought who were building DAO platforms about ways to exit DAOs. A lot of the idea was on permissionless entrance, but very little thought was given to how does like a wallet address or an identity actually leave a DAO. So kind of taking a step, yeah, here's actually the slide that explains it. So to reiterate, it lets any member cash out her shares instead of spending money on a proposal she disagrees with. During a 7-day period after the close of proposal's voting window, any member who didn't affirmatively vote in favor of the proposal can rage quit. And that means they can liquidate their shares, all or some of them, and get back the equivalent value in the treasury or in ETH. And this loses voting power or membership in the DAO if all of the shares are relinquished. And yeah. And so kind of inspired by the rage quit mechanism, the Zodiac exit module allows any design token to be redeemed for a proportional share of assets from Gnosis Safe. So similar to rage quitting, but you could say more powerful. So for example, let's say a DAO mints an ERC20 governance token called LEO with a total supply of 1,000 tokens. And the DAO raises funds selling 500 LEO tokens for ETH and keeping the remaining half in its Gnosis Safe treasury. And it considers everyone that holds the tokens a member. And so that members can exit the organization, the DAO sets up the exit module with the token, excluding the LEO tokens it holds from the circulating supply. This means that a DAO member can redeem their tokens for a proportional share of the DAO assets. So if a member holds 50% of the, or holds 50 LEO tokens, which would be 10% of the circulating supply, they can claim 10% of native assets like ETH or ERC20 tokens from the treasury. So basically what the Zodiac exit module does is that it introduces the concept of shares to a Gnosis Safe. But it is also more modular. It could be used in many different ways. And for example, one kind of fun or potentially dubious example is that it could be used to offer a token takeover from another DAO. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the traditional mechanism of exchanging shares for proportional representation of a treasury, but it could be something like kind of used in some creative ways. And this might get out of hand, so if anyone were to adopt this, but for example, there's a DAO Wars game idea behind this. So you could say that one DAO, DAO A, sets up a Zodiac exit module, allowing anyone holding DAO Z tokens to redeem them for A tokens in its Gnosis Safe treasury, and vice versa. DAO Z equips vice versa anyone holding DAO A tokens to redeem them for Z tokens in its Gnosis Safe treasury. And they could kind of play for total token takeover. So creating conditions for permissionless exit mechanisms and token holders to ally, essentially campaigning for a takeover from one to the next. And you could imagine a kind of team of DAOs participating in this game and potentially coalitions of token holders forming. So rather than just a traditional mechanism, the Zodiac exit module can be a little bit more fun and playful. And so basically in today's tutorial, we'll learn how to set up a Rinkeby Gnosis Safe, equip the exit module, and also if there's time and interest, basically mint our own Rinkeby token and use that to token gate our DAO. So before kind of diving right into it, I just wanted to check, are there any more questions? No.
Feel free to speak up if there is anyone. I do want to hear a little more about this token war, if we might be able to. Could you maybe going back to that slide's a good start, but I just wanted to make sure I had a good visual for what that might look like and what scenario.
Sure, one second. Yeah, so I mean, this is just a funny idea that was kind of had in the last week. But yeah, it's basically, you have one Gnosis Safe that one given DAO controls, and they have a governance token called token A. And then and they hold most of those tokens. And basically, then there's another DAO, say DAO Z, that holds DAO Z tokens. And basically, that's their kind of, you could say governance token, utility token, and whatever they may use it for. But just within the context of the game, it would be, let's say, the game token. And both DAOs, you could assume, held something like 70% of their total supply of tokens. And then other members, other token holders had them kind of freely circulating. And basically, if each one were to set up an exit mod, so basically with DAO A, you could say DAO A will accept anyone who holds the tokens of DAO Z to essentially send them to the safe and get back a proportional amount of token A, so their governance token. So essentially, they would be eating up the other DAO's governance token while distributing their own. Or vice versa, the other DAO could eat up the other DAO's token while distributing their own. So it could be kind of a permissionless mechanism in places where there aren't necessarily liquid market mechanisms or exchange between two tokens, but also a kind of gamified level where you could say maybe like an end goal would be that one DAO would completely control the governance token of another DAO. And that this essentially would be something like a kind of merger acquisition. But you could see something fun like a game on the XDAI network where it's a bunch of different DAOs basically advocating to different token holders why they should kind of exchange their other DAO tokens for a given DAO's token, and then like advocate on its behalf to become like the mega DAO, if that makes it a bit more clear.
It does. It does. It's more. It is more clear. Michael Williams in the chat says tug of war DAO. I think that's a good starting point for it. And then the reason I asked is because it is a really interesting beginning point into any types of, whether it be coalition forming or DAO to DAO related games. So I appreciate that the example was in there, because that's something that, yeah, I think is harder to conceptualize at first blush, especially as all of these tools, like you can think of them as great things for one DAO, but thinking them DAO to DAO is also really fun to do. So
yeah, and I think just encouraging like that we don't really know a lot of the like governance or playful mechanisms that DAOs can enable yet. So having even maybe less cooperative games like this can be fun to think through, like how can we use these basic primitive mechanisms in ways that aren't recognizable as like traditional organizational mechanisms. So I think, you know, the shares redeeming for treasury model is relatively mimicking a kind of known organizational form, but another type of kind of permissionless user-based acquisition or kind of merger between different organizations, we haven't really seen exactly that yet in the world, and that's something like this game idea could acquaint us with.
definitely, very cool. Thank you.
I have a question on this topic since we're talking about this wars. Did you think about concentration of power in case of using these game wars? For example, when one DAO starts basically acquiring in some ways through these games other DAOs, and there's like a lot of concentration of power. Like, was it this discussion when this idea came up? And if so, like, what are the thoughts on this?
Yeah, so this idea is just like a one-off idea from this week. It's not something that we like designed the exit module for. And but yeah, it's definitely an issue. The game is basically a game of concentration of power. So it's not meant as an example, as a good governance tool, but more as something that today is quite possible, and I think should be experimented with in a game format before it's a repeatable pattern.
All right, thank you.
Cool. Well, maybe let's get started. I think maybe we could walk through just the first step together. I'm not sure everybody's kind of familiarity with Gnosis Safe, but we could just, I can share my screen, and basically the way that you, and I would suggest everyone to follow along. So this presentation was shared in the Notion, but basically how you at the moment create kind of test networks, like test network safes like on Rinkeby or elsewhere, is basically through the subdomain. So in this case, it's rinkeby.gnosis-safe.io. And you can basically come over here. So Rinkeby is a test network. That means that all of the ETH and kind of tokens you're using do not have real economic value, even though sometimes they're displayed as such. And it also means that for the time being, though this is currently in the works, a safe you deploy in Rinkeby will have a different address than a mainnet safe. It will fundamentally be a different instance of a safe, which means that they won't share the same address, and you should be careful to never send mainnet ETH or mainnet funds to a Rinkeby safe. And in this session, we'll basically just walk through setting up a Rinkeby safe so that we use kind of play or toy tokens. And so that we also, just to be sure, another way that you ensure that you're on Rinkeby is you'll see it on the kind of top right side. Here's a dropdown that won't switch your addresses or one address between different networks, but will give you different instances of a deployment of a Gnosis safe across different networks. And basically what you do is you connect your MetaMask to the safe. So going originally to the Gnosis Safe interface, if you go to rinkeby.gnosis-safe.io, what will come up is essentially this screen once you connect your MetaMask. And you want to be sure here that MetaMask is also on the Rinkeby test network. So this is Rinkeby ETH that is held here, and this is the network that is enabled. And if you're at rinkeby.gnosis-safe and you're not connected to Rinkeby, you will see a dialog that asks you to please change your network. So here, being sure that we're connected to Rinkeby by seeing MetaMask at Rinkeby, by seeing it in the top right corner, and also by seeing it in the URL, we feel pretty comfortable after connecting our MetaMask here to create a safe. So if everybody wants to kind of join in and click this create new safe button. And here, you're about to create a new safe with one or more owners. And let's give your safe a name. So basically, I'll go through and create another DAO safe that we can use later. But it's key to know that basically Gnosis Safe does not store metadata that you create about the safe on a kind of centralized server. This name of the safe will actually be fundamentally stored in your kind of local storage or your local browser, so that if you empty the cache or if you use a different network or a different laptop, basically you won't see the same safe name here. So this is entirely changeable and not one-to-one kind of stuck with the safe address. And then it also walks you through what address owners you would like to add to a safe. So the safe is basically a multi-signature account, and I think as most of you know, that basically enables multiple signers or multiple owners to share an account. And here we'll just do one with 1 out of 1 signatures required, but you could do it essentially with, if you listed 5 addresses here, it would say 1 out of 5 owners, and then you could set it to any other amount of those. It could be 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, etc. For the purposes of this demonstration, and also because this account won't be holding any mainnet funds, but only testnet funds, we'll create it with just one, the owner name Gnosis Guild attached to the MetaMask. And here it just asks you to review your decision, how many people you've added, and to submit. So what you're doing essentially here is deploying a safe to Rinkeby testnet. So you're deploying an instance of the contract, and that points back to the original instance of the contract, and wait for it to be deployed on Rinkeby testnet. So on mainnet, this can often take up to a couple of minutes because you're actually deploying code on blockchain. And also for this particular initial transaction on mainnet, due to high gas fees, it will be a more costly transaction than kind of a simple transfer of funds often. And if anyone is kind of having trouble or getting on mainnet or otherwise, feel free to reach out. But on Rinkeby, you will be required to pay Rinkeby ETH as part of the fee. And after this, your safe was created successfully. So getting started and looking at the safe. So coming to the safe, you basically see the safe with the local name you created, as well as a copyable address of the safe. And here I'll just put it in the Notion file, which everyone should have access to, but this will be the main safe for today. So kind of going back, basically we've created our safe. Are there any questions up to this point?
I have a question. If I added another wallet for someone else to my safe, how do I now have to like manually notify them that they've been added to the safe as well, so that they know through this process?
Yes, you should. It will of course show up as like a contract interaction related to their account, but they won't have a specific notification. So you should let them know. Once they are signers on the safe, they can opt in for transaction notifications. I know this isn't exactly what you asked, but just to let you know. So if you're using the Safe mobile app, then everyone who is a signer on the safe will get push notifications when a confirmation of a transaction is required. So as long as they have that app installed, then they will get future notifications. It's just basically initially letting them know that they've been added to the safe and should have the safe app, etc.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. So now we've created a safe. And basically for the purpose of this tutorial, I created and minted a separate kind of Rinkeby testnet token. And so this is a token that doesn't have kind of standard economic value, but I called it Ursa. So Ursa after Ursa Major, which is basically the kind of Great Bear constellation. And we can walk through if there's interest at the end of the session about how to use really kind of out of the box tools to mint your own token on any given network, and basically out of the box create an exit mod. So basically here, Rinkeby test network token Ursa, I minted 10,000. And we can consider this the kind of temporary token of DAO WOW today. And what I will do here is basically send, let's say, half of this token to this this safe, and we can call it the kind of DAO WOW safe. So hold on, zoom things in the way. Choose first. I'll send 5,000. Cool. And so in the interim, as that transaction is confirmed, we can then look into setting up the Zodiac reality mod. So I would recommend, we'll go through it in the session today, but basically for future reference in the Notion here, you'll have a link right here to basically the existing documentation for how to set up this mod. So you can always refer to this later, and I'll walk you through. So going back to our safe, basically by going down to the apps tab, we then see right now the apps are arranged alphabetically, although different sorting functions will be available on the safe soon. But you can basically be assured at the moment that Zodiac will always be one of the last ones because it starts with Z. So if you scroll down, you'll see the Zodiac app. And from here, basically, you can equip any of the existing Zodiac mods that will pertain to the specific safe that you're using. And most of these functions can also be completed through the command line interface and can also be built around an account standard other than the Gnosis safe. So it could be a different type of account that just includes the iAvatar Solidity file that we've made for the Zodiac standard. But by having the Zodiac app, it makes it a kind of easier, more user-friendly, although still improving way to basically connect the safe to different DAO platforms and also introduce different mechanisms to the safe. So if we go here to today's session, we'll look at the exit module, as mentioned, of course, but also there will be things like bridge module, delay modifier, and next session we'll dive really deep into the reality module, which takes off-chain votes on-chain, like snapshot or Discord polls, and puts them on-chain. For this session, it'll be a bit shorter and just introduction to the basic premise of how you can use Zodiac to connect to different DAO platforms. And so all of these we'll return to soon. And in the last session, we'll basically be creating our own custom modules that we can use directly from the interface. And so the exit module is relatively straightforward in terms of how you set it up. So what this does, again, is it basically gives access for anyone who will hold this given token can redeem a treasury amount from the safe. So basically here, if we want to use the Ursa token, basically we have 10,000 there, and we want to get the token contract address. So you can find this. This is obviously Etherscan or Block Explorer for the Rinkeby test network. And we have a contract address for the token right here. For different networks, there are different block explorers. In general, Etherscan is used for mainnet and has several kind of test nets available through it. So that's one interface to being able to access the token. So if you go then here and paste that contract address there, we can then add the module. And here we go. And so when you add a Zodiac module, then as always, you'll be asked to confirm that the module is in fact correct. and that the contract interaction is as we say. So basically DAO WOW wants to enable a contract interaction, and we submit. And as per usual, confirm. And so once this transaction is reviewed, basically, as we wait for it, the exit module that's equipped to this specific safe will become visible. So now we've equipped the exit module for the URSA token on the safe. And basically, because Zodiac is highly modular, you can always come back and change it. Although to enable a completely different kind of token or exit mod, you would have to deploy a new module. But you can always go back and remove this first module you've deployed at any time here by the simple remove button. And basically what this then gives us is ability to kind of read the contracts. So here we say this is the avatar, this is the account on which the exit mod is enabled. So this is the same address as the Gnosis safe. There's also the circulating supply contract, which basically takes a dynamic value that excludes the operating address. So it excludes the amount that this address holds of the given token that was supplied. So it excludes the 5,000 that this DAO holds, and calculates the circulating supply of this asset. So you have a dynamic number, and you know that certain holders, if there's only a 5,000 circulating supply out of a contract that has 10,000, that basically you'll be able to, someone who holds 1,000 of those tokens in general would hold 10% of the total supply, but actually 20% of the circulating supply, and therefore have access to 20% of the safe's treasury that is in ETH or other tokens than the, let's say, governance token. And so we have the circulating supply contract as well the designated token. So that's the contract address of the token that the exit mod has been enabled on. And here we can also have the owner, which is the same as the account, and a few other addresses related to specific parameters that are available on the Git repo if you want to look into and read deeper and change them. And also from here, you can choose different functions to update them. So you can add, change the avatar, designated token, guards, targets, and otherwise. And so we've basically enabled the exit mod here for the URSA token. But right now, the DAO only holds this amount. Oh, and then this safe also holds 10,000 Rinkaby DAI, so not real DAI. And so basically here now anyone can come, and then if they hold URSA tokens, they're eligible to redeem a certain percentage of this 10,000 DAI. So quite soon, in the next week or two, and we can revisit in the next session, there will be an interface available for anyone to come who has a given token to basically redeem a percentage of that DAI, once again, Rinkaby DAI, so not real financial asset, for this URSA token. And essentially having kind of governance or accessible rights to the treasury within the DAO. Yeah, so that's in large part the approach. And basically what I will do as well is as we get the last kind of exit mod interface up in the next coming weeks and for the next session, I will take all of the addresses that are in the CSV and distribute some of the URSA token to you all. And then it will act as a kind of DAO WOW safe that we can eventually reconnect with the DAO WOW DAO house that we made in the first session. Yeah, that's the kind of simple approach. I wanted to pause here and see if there are any other questions.
Yes. You know, one thing that I had to do during this is go check what URSA major is. So if you haven't done that yet, it's a nice Google rabbit hole. Before I ask any questions, does anyone have questions for Kia on this section? Any?
I have a question.
Please.
So if you have something that is a little bit more subjective in value, like if you have NFTs in the treasury, is there a way to like manually assign a value to that to allow someone to get their, respective percentage access to the treasury to pull out something like an NFT?
Yeah,
How would
so
you handle something like that?
Totally. So this has actually been one of our most requested features for this mod. So right now on the GitHub repo that houses it, there's an issue open for it to basically enable NFTs as both vice versa redeemable treasury assets through the exit mod. And yeah, we keep getting endless requests for this. So we are prioritizing it. Basically now how we're thinking about it is that it would be kind of pulling from the floor price of a given asset. So if an NFT would be calculated that given the floor prices that would have to kick off for the auction to happen, and that be taken as the representative price. There would also be things for, because right now how the mod essentially works is it doesn't necessarily calculate assets in terms of price, but in terms of amount. So with the ERC20 approach, it's saying, okay, like what proportional share does this address hold of, let's say, a governance token? And then converts that proportional share, not reflected in price, would say like 10% or 5% over to 10 or 5% of a given token within the safe itself. So it's not one-to-one there, but there's a few different ways that we could approach the implementation of the NFT module. And I'll share the GitHub issue and you can see and follow along as we develop it to input any features you would like.
Awesome. And then I have one other question. This one's probably much more simple, but to take a step back, like, is this a very common structure for DAOs to allow for this type of redemption from a treasury?
So for all Moloch DAO based frameworks, so Moloch DAO V1, V2, and upcoming V3, which is what DAO House does kind of no code enable. This is a really core mechanism to how it works. So anyone with shares or loot in the DAO are able to redeem them. I would say in general, it's not, from the early days of DAOs, it was not one-to-one. I think really, at least to my knowledge, Moloch kind of kicked off this practice. And I think with Compound, there are some mechanisms by which you can redeem a token. But I think that looking at right now, like a lot of the safe and snapshot DAOs, this actually isn't the case in practice because there hasn't been a mechanism like this to enable it. And I think now that the exit mod is live, many DAOs will start using it in a more granular way for the users when they're using kind of safe and snapshot combinations, which is slowly rising as like one of another paradigm. But yeah, I would say it's a fairly common practice, at least to enable. Not necessarily always to interact or not always enacted, but within Moloch DAOs.
Cool, thank you.
Great
I have a
questions.
question.
Go ahead.
So I was wondering, so a lot of this is, you know, extracting your shares or like the financial, you know, or the and also like you don't have voting power anymore once you leave the DAO. So I was also wondering, you know, coming from like a lot of Web 2 stuff, there's not really this ability to take your data with you when you leave a platform, because in Web 2 data is extracted in order for the platform to work. So I was wondering how other kinds of data is handled, and if that's like a consideration or is that's not really part of the scope of this module.
So by data, do you mean like your maybe say like metadata associated with your proposals that you've made or other forms of participation?
Yeah, I think yeah, like metadata, like sort of like maybe like a more of like on a privacy consideration.
Mm-hmm. So this module doesn't directly address that. I would say that would have to be addressed some kind of lower level of the stack of basically having private transactions. Because ultimately your interactions within this DAO, if you voted on chain, have been recorded on chain to that given wallet address. So that record and at the moment is by default very public on Ethereum. And that there isn't a way that we could necessarily kind of remove that public record. I think, you know, we're working as a team on different kind of private voting mechanisms that I think would make that less of an issue. So I see that as definitely really important, but probably solved more so by a lower level layer of the stack.
Okay, Kia, please keep you on time if we don't have as much time. But One quick one, I think this is more of a bug hunt. The Safe app, there's an error message when trying to connect to the Zodiac app, which says the Safe app is taking too long to load. Consider refreshing. Is that something you're familiar with, or?
Yeah, so that sometimes can be either our network, our kind of instance for the Rinkeby version, as well as kind of local network connection. I know I was getting that earlier here before I switched to the Wi-Fi hotspot. So if you keep refreshing, eventually it should come through, but usually it's a network access issue.
Got it. Cool. Okay. And then if we do have time to indulge one last question, I just thought that the way that you set this up, and maybe on the assets page, you have the 10,000 DAI, you have the 5,000 Ursa tokens. It's just like a really good mental model for this 2-token structure that has one token, this Ursa token, that perhaps in this case is or in the most simple Moloch DAO case it's just kind of like given 1-to-1 based on your contribution, maybe financial, into a DAO. But it's also just something interesting to think about on how people can earn their share of Ursa and how that impacts how that treasury is managed over time. So I just wanted to call out that 2-token model is a something that has seemed to gain traction. I don't know that Kia, if you have any other thoughts on the 2-token model versus, it looks like in this example there's more than 2. I like all of these new ones, but yeah, curious to get your take.
Yeah, so it seems in terms of creating this safe, I think potentially a collaborator and co-founder on the project, Oren, has generously donated other Rinkeby testnet tokens, which are frequently used in testing, called Venus, 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 and Venus. So now we have a kind of multiplicity of tokens to play with in the next sessions. In general, I think the 2-token model can be interesting. I think in a certain way, I would consider this maybe still, like, if we just think of it as DAI and Ursa Major still, as basically a 1-token model, in the sense that there is kind of recognizable, redeemable assets that are pegged to a known currency, and that is DAI, pegged to USD, or pegged to baskets and different collaterals related to the US dollar. And basically that Ursa Major is like another token on top of it. I would say there's also like a lot of potential for a 2-token model within a DAO, where you have a treasury that holds maybe more redeemable payment tokens like DAI, but you might have Ursa Major, which represents payment from the DAO or kind of co-ownership of the DAO. And you might also have a kind of 2-token model where also there's one reputation token. So the example that I used in the last session was kind of looking at how different gaming guilds basically use the Dragon Kill Point systems. So these are systems that were built to basically track participation in missions by guild members. So if you showed up on a mission, you got a certain amount of Dragon Kill Points, or they were distributed to you by a certain kind of mechanism, and that they showed participation and also, in a sense, reputation over time, and that they were only redeemable directly for loot items or in-game items. And often complementary in the kind of gaming guild worlds, there would be other types of currency in the game world that you would use for more traditional needs within a game. So here we could imagine having DAI as the kind of treasury asset, Ursa Major as maybe the kind of co-ownership payment asset. And then you could also imagine something like a kind of reputation or contribution that is non-transferable, but is based on one's kind of meaningful contributions to the DAO. And right now, actually, we're looking at hopefully getting through a proposal to do like, to support the Governauts 5-month research program on different reward systems within DAOs, and things like reputation tokens will be a prime focus of this research. So yeah, I think the multiple token model is potentially much better for enabling like less plutocratic norms around governance that we see today, and also like adding kind of if you have a non-transferable token that's reputation-based, that's like paired with the exit model of redeemable financial assets, then you get a kind of more interesting and interwoven interplay of like how DAOs can facilitate value exchange, but also just like connection and co-ownership.
Yeah,
And I also
incredible.
see Oren is on the call, who I believe who is a co-founder and collaborator on the project. And I think he graciously gifted us the extra tokens. Oren, I don't know if you want to say anything, also anything that I might have missed that you want to bring up before moving on. If not, also that's fine.
Yeah, no, I've just been having fun dropping some tokens in here. I was going to say, if you want, we could actually go through an exit transaction too, just to demonstrate like the closing of the loop here. Although it might be a little bit more kind of diving into the weeds in terms of having to go and interact with the ABI through some other interfaces. But I might be able to set up a quick interface for it somewhere on like one-click DApp.
Sure. I think that would be super cool if you want to do that. And could I see maybe in the chat if people would be down to see it kind of closing the loop, even if we don't have the final interface? Maybe just like signal +1s or.
Yeah, you could also use the reaction emojis. I see a yes in the chat.
Cool. Yeah, I just can't see the full grid at the moment. So.
Yeah, I see 3 thumbs up and 1 yes in the chat so far. So some interest.
Cool. I think, yeah, Oren, if you want to run through it, if you don't think it will take so long, and then we can look into creating the tokens either at the end of this session or as part of the next one, that also works.
Yeah, okay. So in that case, Kia, if you want to, you'll need to send yourself some of the Ursa major tokens.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, everyone chat amongst yourselves. I'll take about 2 minutes to spin up a quick little one-click DApp version of this.
Cool. All right. Well, in that case, then maybe just in the interim, I can show everybody how the Ursa tokens were minted.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Cool, because I already have the other half in my wallet. So basically, super cool no-code tool for minting different assets. This is also in the Notion file. So basically, if you go over here, at the end, the kind of optional mint ring can be ERC20 token to use for the exit mod. Feel free if anybody wants to follow along. So basically here by the super awesome team up in Zeppelin, we have the contracts wizard, which basically can bootstrap token deployment code. So here's actually the original one that I used for Ursa Major. So basically looking, and this is right now network agnostic, but just knowing that it's on a kind of Ethereum or EVM chain. So you can set up your kind of token settings here. I don't know if we have any suggestions for another name in the chat or something of a token that anyone here would like to create.
Always do Ursa Minor.
Yeah, cool. So I'll just refresh real quick to clear.
Polaris was another suggestion in the chat.
Nice, Polaris. It's very connected to Ursa Major. So we can call it Pol, getting a little political as well. And here we can say how many we want to pre-mint. So maybe it's kind of twin of, let's say, Ursa Major. We'll also give it 10,000. And then basically this means the kind of initial supply of the token that will be minted on chain. And then you can go to these different features that you want to enable from the code that will be deployed. So you can go mintable, privileged accounts will be able to create more supply. So in this case, the access control is that this token is ownable. What this means is that a single account authorized for privileged transactions. And right now, in this case, this will be a MetaMask that I've connected with, and I will be the kind of address owner of this token. And if I choose mintable here, this means that I have the ability to mint later tokens apart from the initial pre-mint, so apart from the initial 10,000. Burnable, it means that the tokens can be destroyed. Pausable, this is a pending EIP, I believe, or actually no, this one is in there. When not paused, we'll leave that one off for now. Permit is pending EIP. Votes, so this means keeps track of historical balances for voting in on-chain governance with a way to delegate one's voting power to a trusted account. we'll definitely check that ability. Flash minting, so this is for ability to be used for more flash loans. For right now, we'll leave this out for Polaris. And snapshots. This basically enables it to be snapshotted. So at a particular block number, you can see which token, which addresses hold which amounts of this token. And we'll just make it ownable for now, basically from my address. And yeah, and I'll leave the other stuff like MIT license, it's ERC20. So then, yeah, really interesting that it's there. So what you can do is either if you have your own kind of setup development environment, you can either copy to clipboard and run there, but there's also this super cool kind of direct development interface. You can find it at remix.ethereum.org that allows you to deploy code as is. So basically here we now have our smart contract on Remix. And from here, we can rename the Solidity file. We can rename it Polaris. Oops, all these little zoom controls blocking. So here we have our little contract code. We'll just leave it as is. We set a few parameters. That's all good for us. We'll kind of come over here and we'll compile it. Just super cool that we can just do this in the browser, sit back. And basically, you can also look at the environment on which the code will be deployed. So let's say injected Web3. This basically means injecting your Web3 wallet provider directly from browser. So we'll do inject Web3, and I'll just use my MetaMask that's already connected to Rinkeby. And there we can see injected Web3 on the Rinkeby network, the account address, and the contract. And we want to go down to the Polaris contract we've just created. And we want to choose deploy. And this will deploy it to the Rinkeby test network. And I will confirm the interaction from my MetaMask. Should go through.
Kia, I might have missed this. Was there anywhere where you had to explicitly mark these Rinkeby tokens?
So it's just in this environment here, when you do injected Web3,
Okay.
and then it reads automatically from my injected wallet what network I'm on. So here I'm on Rinkeby, and then beneath it, you'll see Rinkeby network. So definitely be careful as you're doing this to make sure that you're not on a mainnet network. Right now, these are all just virtual machines and Web3 provider, but just to let you know. Here, let's. I think it went through. Let me just double check. We'll just give it a second. And Oren, how's the one-click DApp going?
Yeah, we're good. I realized that I didn't actually need to deploy one-click DApp because the contract code is automatically verified. So it's we can just do it through Etherscan, which is really nice. I'm going to drop the URL to that in chat along with the parameters for the exit call, and you should be good to go.
Cool.
One thing as a sneak peek for next week, if we have a second, is that we finally get to module 5 of kernel, which is on tokens and mechanism design. And Andy's approach there was defining tokens well beyond how they're described in Web3. The most succinct way that it's described, I'll put in the chat, which is tokens transmit information about facts. And that framing I have found to be really interesting, and especially in seeing the examples we're going through today. there's so many different ways that tokens could be used, and much beyond what we've currently been able to do in DAO world.
Yeah, I like also from the recent public goods piece by Other Internet, I think they say that tokens are ultimately a kind of a promise, and it's not necessarily a financial promise, but also I think within Andy's framing, you could say a promise of an object that like we don't know like the full limitations of.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool. And Oren, are you able to drop it in the Zoom chat, or are you on Discord?
Oh, I dropped it into Discord, but I can drop it into Zoom as well.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. That's where I was checking. If you don't mind.
Yeah, here we go.
Cool, thanks.
No worries. Now that amount, how many decimals did you set for the Ursa Major token?
I believe it was 10. I think that's the default. Or
10 is the default. It would be 18. if
Sorry,
it was-
sorry, yeah, my bad. So I'm not sure. I left it. I left it just default. Let's see if I still have the contract. I think yeah, it's just default. I believe 1019.
Cool. Let's just assume that it's 18 then. That's right. So now you go to the exit function, the second one down in this list, and you'll drop in type 100 there, and then hit the little plus button that's above it, and there you can select 10 to the 18, and that'll just pad it with zeros for you. And then here you'll drop in that array of token addresses that is in the Zoom chat.
And should it be in the array form? Or without
Yeah,
brackets?
you need to have brackets on it, and
Okay.
I think you do anyway. And yeah, it should. Yeah, perfect. And one thing to note here is that that array of tokens has to be ordered in ascending order of the addresses, essentially treating the addresses as numbers. They have to be in ascending order. And this is just the kind of cheapest way to make sure that you don't get duplicate tokens in that array. So if you hit connect to Web3 now, above the list of functions here, and pray to the live demo gods, and we should we should be good.
All right.
Please, some prayer emojis in the chat, please, from all of our people.
It looks like it's not connected to MetaMask yet. All right, there we go. Cool. So now hit right again, and we should be good to go. Oh no! All right. Let me try a simpler one. Actually, try just deleting a few zeros off of your off of the number of tokens that you're claiming, because we could have just messed up the math. Just grab a chunk of them and delete them, like 5 or 6 of the zeros. Let's see if that changes anything for us. Maybe just make it 1. If that one doesn't work, then we can try to claim less tokens. Is this address is the one that holds some major tokens?
Yep.
The one that you're connected with? Yeah.
This is scaled. Yep. Yeah.
All right. The live demo codes are not shining on us right now. I think the only other thing that we could do is just reduce the number of tokens that we're trying to claim. So maybe delete all but one of those tokens and just hope that we get one that works. When I say those tokens, I just mean the addresses. So if you Just make yeah, there you go. Delete everything from there. Perfect. Let's hope that one works.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, I think
It's
to not
okay.
bore everyone with trying to debug this in person. We'll try this again next week with a bit more prep.
Cool. Yeah, and it should be by the end of our sessions, we'll have the user interface for it live. So that means
Right.
that you can basically go to an application and redeem given assets from a given safe. So that loop will be further closed. Cool. I don't know if there are any other questions. If basically just to well, maybe I'll just pause for a second and see if there's any other questions.
Just to, go through what we were attempting to do here, it would have been a portion of the Ursa tokens along with a portion of the DAI and perhaps some Venus and Zenus tokens would have
Right.
been taken with whoever leaves. Yeah. Okay.
So it would have the person calling exit, they will end up sending their Ursa major tokens to the Gnosis safe, and basically redeeming those for a share of all of the other tokens that they entered into this list of tokens here. So in this case, we tried to enter in the DAI and the DAI, Venus, Venus, Zenus, and Zenus, and it would have claimed a kind of proportional share of each of those tokens.
And the share that was sent, let's say they sent in 1,000 Ursa, would that stay in treasury or would it be burnt?
That would stay in the safe. So we've thought about making a version of it that actually burns it, and we still may. The reason that we decided to go this route is that burn is an optional function in the ERC20 standard. So you can't guarantee that every ERC20 token will have a burn function. But we can guarantee that every ERC20 token will have a transfer function because that's a required part of the standard. So we know that it will work with any ERC20 token this way. We don't know that it will work with any ERC20 token with the if we were to burn them. But I think an option to burn the tokens instead of transfer them would be a really nice feature as well. So probably something that we'll add in another version.
Got it. We do have one debug potential here. It looks like we might, if you remove the quotes, that seems to follow the like address. I don't know. That was just a suggestion from the chat. If we want to try it. No.
Sad.
Sad.
Yeah, but so next session, basically, I will also airdrop all of the addresses that are listed in our current spreadsheet, the Ursa token, so that hopefully by next session we can close this loop and everybody can redeem a proportional share of assets that are currently in our DAO safe.
Incredible.
Cool. So basically, I realize it's getting close to kind of calendar time, to the end of this session on our calendars. I just wanted to basically thank everybody for coming along on this, and hopefully that the just general approach and how the kind of all the loops that we're seeking to close through the Zodiac approach, but also just in these tutorial sessions will come together towards the end. And leave it open for any questions, and just also a reminder that should definitely check out the DAO that we created on DAO House last time, because there's a few fresh proposals coming up. So if people who have decided to become members, and the last sessions will connect all these platforms together. So be sure to go there and vote for people to enter into the DAO. And yeah, feel free to DM me with any questions that you might have from this session. And I'm really grateful for everybody's time and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. Amazing. Kia, thank you so much. This is awesome. It's such a good mix of introductory content and deep knowledge of where we're coming from. So it means a lot.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, and cheers everybody, and see you next week.
Bye-bye, bye-bye. Okay, I'm gonna click stop record.